Mr. Brownlee, you have a couple of minutes to...
Schedule 2 says divisions of taxes levy. No, that's Schedule 1. Schedule 2 says statement of fund activity, beginning balance, and then the estimated revenues, and then total resources available for expenditure. We have in the, well, first of all, what's the purpose of Schedule 2 specifically, the statement of fund activity?
As it said, you project the revenue, you project the expenditures. You're projecting your need, and you're projecting why you need the money.
Can read it.
So how is the county, this Schedule 2 is of a different purpose than Schedule 1? Because you said Schedule 1 was so that they could see that we have need. Is that?
Schedule
2 is...
Schedule 1 is part of Schedule 2. If you check your numbers, you'll see that they match.
So then in Schedule 2, Fund 100, the general fund, says we expect total resources available for expenditure, which is all of our revenue minus any negative balances. We estimate to have $15 million to spend in the general fund next year, yet we only have, where's the revenue document? For this year, we only expect to have $12.9 million to spend. So that would be $2.1 million more that we expect to have available.
For the benefit of council, the format is to project your needs, not what your current operating level. Hopefully, we will get enough money to restore some of the cuts and things that we made. And that's just it. You're projecting your needs, not what we're operating at this point. This is not a 2014 budget. There's no comparison. We're projecting what we may need next year.
Yes, no, this is actually projecting the fourth column, total resources available for expenditure. And it has been estimated to be $15 million available to spend. But that's $2.1 million more than we are estimating to have to spend this year.
Mr. Brownlee, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This year is an operation budget that we plan to spend according to what we've already been awarded. This is a request for our award for next year. So you don't want to project to stay at the same level, maybe you do. But our hope is that we would get more money so that we can bring back some programs or improve our operations. It's a request, a request, a request. It's not an actual. It's a request.
So we have estimated property taxes and local government revenue to be $3.4 million. That's, I guess, the third column on Schedule 2 under General Fund. So the General Fund says property taxes, local government revenue, $3.4 million. On our certificate of estimated resources from this year, general property and local only total $2.4, but we're estimating $3.4 for next year.
We're not estimating, we're requesting, request. We're not prepared, that's not a budget that we're doing for next year. That's our request to use as our budget for next year, to use those resources.
Mr. Brownlee, could you possibly get your question actually centered on exactly what it is you need to know? We need to pass this budget this evening, or I'm sorry, it's not a budget, it's a request for funds. If you have any further
In Schedule
questions.
2, this is a statement of fund activity, which would be like the budget, the anticipation of what will come in and what will be spent.
No,
So-
it's not. It's not anticipating what we expect to spend. It's a request of what we would need. There's a difference between request, to ask, to plead, or whatever you want to use, versus what we already have, which is the 2014 budget. We already know what we're getting from the government. We already know what we're getting from property taxes. We already know what we're projecting from other resources. And so we form a budget. We would do the exact same thing in December. We would sit here, based on what the county say they're going to give us, they will let us know out of that budget how much they plan to give us. Then we will go through the same exercise as we did with 2014 and 54. We will prepare the 2015 budget, but then we will know what our award has been. They sent out what they call, Mr. Brownlee, a Schedule A, and it details how much we will get. And those are the numbers you see on the 2014 budget. So this is a request to get as much as we can, and they will give us whatever formulas they use based on our collection rate. And I have nothing else to say about that. I mean, that's all I can say.
In that
It's a
case-
request.
So-
In that case, I'd like to
One more
have a motion for
clarifying
adoption,
question,
please.
Madam Chair.
You're not
Clarifying
recognized.
Question.
I did not recognize you, Mr. Brownlee. I'd like to move on and have a motion for adoption, please. Thank you. A second. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Brownlee, if you have a pertinent question that will resolve your issues, perhaps you'd like to have a personal conference with the finance director?
After we vote to pass it.
Probably, yes. Yes.
I'd like to ask my question now before we vote.
You have a minute.
So we've talked about the Schedule 2, and you've explained that it's not actually an estimate for next year. This is whatever it is, a request for money, you call it. So we don't expect to bring in $3.4 million or $15 million in the general fund next year. That's not what you are actually expecting to bring in next year. Is a different number than is here.
It's a request.
So you're not expecting these numbers.
It's a request.
So
I don't know what they're
where
going
do
to
these
give us.
numbers come from if they're not what you're expecting to come in?
It's a request.
And then where do the numbers of the request come from?
It
An
comes-
estimate of some type? A best guess of what the revenue will
I
be
think
next year?
there's entitled estimates and what have you, Mr. Brownlee.
It's a statement of fund activity. Yeah, and it says revenue, local government and property taxes revenue. So that's not the estimate of what we'll receive next year. That's not what you think. Well, then what is our estimate of what we'll receive next year?
It is a request. I do not know what we'll receive. In December, mark your calendar, we will receive a Schedule A. A Schedule A. That would tell us what we will receive. Until then, nobody knows.
So if this isn't an estimate of what we'll receive, what use is this to the county? They're just saying, oh, you can put whatever number you want in there? That doesn't seem logical.
If you read the cover letter, it is
So-
something that comes from the county.
So is it an estimate?
Wow,
This tax, this,
you're a genius.
this,
You're a genius,
Madam Chair, you wanna let
Councilman
the mayor
Brown, you're
just
a
run it?
genius. Wow.
It's time. I'm going to call the roll for adoption, please. We have
Okay.
enough discussion.
Safarati. Jackson.
Yes.
Brownlee.
No.
Jajanski.
Wow, yes.
Agee. Adams. Jones.
Yes.
Passed by the vote, 4, 5, 6 to 1. Resolution number 2014-56, a resolution terminating the rainy day contingency fund, 102, transferring the balance to the general fund in the city of Maple Heights and declaring an emergency.
This resolution is on its third reading, and I do want to remind you all, with the information that we got from the auditors yesterday, that this was one of their strong recommendations. So if there's any further discussion, I'd like to hear it now.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to retain the contingency fund instead of terminating in the resolution 2014-56.
Pardon me?
So moved.
So moved. I'm sorry, we can't.
Who seconded?
Anthony?
Now, am I to understand this, I want to understand this motion correctly? You want to retain the fund but move the money? You want to move the money but retain
Yeah,
the
that's
fund?
what, yeah, you don't want to terminate it.
We don't want to terminate.
Right.
That's
Well, I
the
think
You
only-
can move it, but leave some in the fund. You said terminate, when you terminate it, you're getting rid of it, correct?
Well, the legislation is moving all of the money in there.
Correct.
So you can move all the money, but just keep the fund without termination. There will be no money in it. That's which one?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
okay, just so we understand.
Madam Chair, for clarification, that would be a motion for adoption of this ordinance?
No,
Right.
but
Well,
I want to make sure that she's clear on what I'm hearing.
yes, no, she is. But, you know, let me ask the,
Hang on, I want to,
Okay.
Councilwoman Agee, is this a motion to adopt, or are you attempting to amend?
She's amending.
Okay, I wasn't hearing, I just wanted to hear what the amendment, if you could clarify that, what the amendment is, so I can hear it.
okay, we could do that also. We also talked about dropping some of these line item funds. So I don't know if is it absolutely necessary to legislate to retain it? The fund,
Well,
not
the word,
what's in the fund.
the wording termination would be deleted. The money would still be moved,
Okay, all right. Okay, let's
from
go.
what I understand.
Can I ask a question?
Well, we have a motion on the
Okay.
floor right now.
Let me-
For one moment, please.
I just need the motion clarified, because I'm sorry, I just didn't hear it. You're
Okay.
amending it, I just need to know what your specific amendment would be.
Instead of terminating the fund, we want to keep it open. We
Okay,
don't want to terminate it.
okay,
She's objecting to the word terminating.
okay.
Is that okay? I mean, yeah. We want to keep the fund.
But still transfer the money.
Right.
Correct.
Right,
Right.
Okay,
okay.
understood.
Can we vote on that motion, please?
So we're gonna vote on that motion. Safrati,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Brownlee,
yes.
Turjansky.
Yes.
You said yes?
Yes.
Agee,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Okay, so the ordinance will be amended to delete the word termination, that section.
Good.
Now we need
Now, may I have a motion for adoption, please?
Madam Chair, I,
May I have,
So,
can you,
No discussion.
discussion, that's all.
I have a
discussion,
motion.
can you wait for a moment, please?
I have Mr. Adams, a second?
I just wanted,
Wait a minute, I don't
Can you
have a
wait for a
second to the
moment,
motion.
We need a second, and then we can discuss.
Who's second?
I did.
Okay, all right. Discussion,
how much money do we have in the rainy day?
121,000.
250.
So what we're proposing, is to not, like going to the bank, paying your car payment, house payment you're behind. You go to the bank, you get your savings account. So we're gonna draw all of that money out,
Put it in the
but
general
we're gonna
fund.
keep the account.
Correct, just
Now,
in
are we
case.
gonna add money back into this account?
If we get wealthy, maybe. We never know. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a good.
Okay, all right, is there any further discussion? Mr. Jackson?
Madam Chair, and I
Yes.
spoke about this
I know.
before, I don't think any of us thinks that it's gonna be a point in time where something's not gonna break in the city, trucks or whatever. If all our line items are balanced off against each other, and we have no money in the rainy day fund, whatever kind of contingency fund or whatever you wanna say, then when we need that money, we gotta go to another line item in the budget and take it from it. Now we gotta find out how we're gonna make up that less money in that line item. At some point in time, when we get to the point where we can put some money back in this rainy day contingency fund and things come up like separation pay and major repairs, there'll be some money in there that wouldn't take any other action in the budget except for going to this contingency fund and paying out whatever it is that has to be done.
That's a great idea, Councilman Jackson, except that it's raining. It's time.
That's why we're moving the money.
That's, and that's why we're going to keep the fund
That's why we're
just
gonna
in
keep the
case.
fund. That's what I said.
Exactly, so you're agreeing.
No, you're agreeing with me.
No, I don't.
Just like that, muddy the water.
Okay. May I have, Mr. Brownlee?
This is transferring all of the funds, but what would it be perhaps wise to retain a portion of the funds in case of something that, if it continues to rain even more, something serious happens and we need a sum of money, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 for something, to keep it there, set aside, so that we don't spend all this money now and leave no breathing room at all in the future. Because if we transfer all this to the general fund, then we will appropriate it all, and there won't be anywhere to go to get that money, except, like Mr. Jackson said, to steal it from somewhere else. So if we retain a portion of it back, which seems whatever portion might be advisable, then if there is more rain that falls, something unforeseeable happens, something fails, breaks, whatever needs replaced, then there will be breathing space still. Because if we move all this to the general fund, it will get appropriated. So perhaps we should hold a portion of it back so that we don't appropriate all of it, and then we're in a very difficult spot.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Tony.
when we had the people from the state auditor's office here, they basically strongly recommended us to move the money to the general fund. It is also seen as a goodwill measure that we're trying to patch the hole. I don't think that they would see it favorable for us to hold back on something, especially when we're in the hole, and they even said themselves, it's not raining, it's pouring out there. So I would also like to see if Finance Director concurs with that.
My comment is this. First of all, we are, as you stated, should only appropriate resources. This is not a resource. This is a balance sheet item, and it will be going to towards eliminating the deficit. It's a balance sheet item. It's not a revenue and expense item. So you're moving it from one balance sheet line to another. You do not appropriate balance sheet items. You appropriate resources, which we have talked about. Those are monies that we generate through activities and what have you. So you would not see that in the budget except as going towards eliminating the deficit. It's not a revenue item. It's not a resource. You do not appropriate balance sheet items.
Thank you. The other thing I'd like to bring forward, in talking with the auditors yesterday, we talked about the line items that we see on our appropriations and our balance sheets. But the thing that they're really looking at is the general fund. So $2,000 here, $150,000 there. They're looking at the big fund, not the little ones. So I tend to agree. Yes.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jackson?
Point of clarification to Finance Director. Are these actual dollars that we have in this contingency fund?
It's a balance sheet item. Yes, it's listed as cash. If you look back at, the statement that they gave you yesterday on page, let's see what page it was. There's a fund balance on page 8 where they listed all of the positive numbers. And, they washed them against the negative line item. So it's a positive fund balance. Fund balance are made up of assets minus liabilities equal fund balance. So assets, cash, there's no liabilities against it right now. So the fund balance and the cash equal the same.
Okay, so we actually have this money. So,
yes, the money is there.
okay, so going back, and one of the things that I think we've been trying to stress, a couple of us, if we leave $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in that and move everything else, if a snowplow truck breaks or something happens, then that money is readily available to have that truck fixed. Is that correct, or am I missing something here?
You're missing something.
It'd also be in the general
Available in
fund.
the general fund.
Yeah.
It's not gonna stay there. It's gonna get spent.
You do
It's gonna
not
help
appropriate
balance.
balance sheet items. You do not appropriate cash. You appropriate resources, revenue. This is not a revenue. It's already been counted as revenue. You don't double count revenue. Whenever it came into the contingency fund, it was a receipt from some source. So,
Madam Chair.
Okay, this is, are we ready to call the roll?
Madam Chair.
Recall the roll, please.
Sefrati?
Hold on a second. I appeal the decision to call the roll and end the discussion. I think we have more questions.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I have more questions.
This is the third reading, and we're now bringing forward questions that haven't been answered.
That's not an
Are we bringing up questions that we have just come forward with? Mr. Brownlee, I'll give you 1 minute. Excuse me?
So,
Excuse me?
What did you say?
in the general
What did you
fund,
say? I didn't hear him.
in the general
It's
fund,
okay.
we have listed, if you look at page 1 of the revenue. If we look at page 1 of the revenue, at the very bottom of the general fund, you can see a transfer in from 2013. When it transfers in, it becomes a revenue. And then it gets appropriated. These are word games. If you transfer that money in, it'll end up in a line item just like that one. Transfer in, and it'll become part of the resources for that fund, and it will be appropriated. We can call it what we want. It will become a revenue in that fund, and it will be appropriated. So they will not be there anymore. It won't be sitting in the general fund as a backup. It will get appropriated. It'll become part of the revenues that are appropriated from the general fund.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, you had a comment?
No, I have no other comment.
Tony, did you have another comment?
No.
Okay. Anthony, go ahead.
The question is to council members, do you want to transfer all the money or part of the money? If you want to transfer part of the money, you have to make a motion with an amount. If nobody wants to do that, then
Then let's
it
vote.
stands as.
We just vote.
Yeah, and I'd like to make that motion, that we transfer in $100,250.
$100,250.
Second.
So what does that leave us a balance of?
$21,000.
Which is gonna help fix what truck?
Any truck, I think that'll fix a power one.
Oh, yeah, 10 of them.
Okay. Call the roll. Is there any discussion on that?
This is to adopt the motion,
Right.
to approve the motion?
This is to approve his motion to restrict the fund.
All right,
Kathy, read that, please.
this is a motion to transfer into the general fund the amount of $100,250, leaving approximately $21,000 in the contingency fund, which
Correct.
will not be terminated.
Correct.
Of course.
Call the roll, please.
Sefrati,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Brownlee,
Yes.
Turjansky,
No.
Agee,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Jones.
No.
Motion passed.
Now, may I have a motion for adoption, please?
So moved.
Wait a minute, we already have a motion for adoption.
Oh,
We have Alex.
That's right, that's right.
Yes,
All right, I'm sorry,
but not as amended.
as amended.
No, wait a minute.
you never voted on
That's
Councilman
right, you
Agee's
didn't.
amendment. You're all over the board again.
This,
Yeah, I got it.
this resolution, I'll read it again, a resolution, I'm going to change that, regarding the rainy day contingency fund, 102, and transferring $100,250 to the general fund in the city of Maple Heights and declaring an emergency. This is as amended by Mr. Jackson.
And we've already moved and adopted
Right,
and
right.
seconded it, so
So that's the content of what you're voting on.
so
Okay.
Madam President,
We would like to, yes.
could I ask the law director, Councilwoman Agee's motion was never dealt with. And then another motion came up and seconded, and you had a roll call. I believe you cannot have two motions on the floor at the same time without addressing one before you move
It
on to
was
the other.
voted on.
That was voted on.
Sure about that?
Yes,
Yes,
yes. It was all,
yes.
But it was a motion under,
She had a motion, there was a vote, and it passed.
under adoption.
To
No,
amend.
it was
Listen,
just
to amend the
Second
ordinance.
amendment.
So you have two amendments now.
yes,
Correct.
two amendments on the legislation.
And we'd like to,
This was already on the floor. And
Yes.
then there was discussion, and there were two amendments to it.
right.
So we're voting on the resolution 2014-56 as amended.
Okay, can we call the roll for adoption, please?
Do we have discussion?
Another discussion? We could have further
I
discussion.
don't agree with keeping any money in the contingency fund because I don't think that it's gonna be looked upon favorably by the state auditors. And I think we're not smarter than they are, and they strongly suggested us to put the fund in. And I'm sorry, if a frickin' truck breaks down, then it breaks down and we take it out of the general fund, because that's where the money's going into. I don't agree with this. But you got us in a rock and a hard place, because if we don't vote on this as amended by y'all, which you have that right,
Okay,
yeah,
let's call the roll, please.
I'm just not happy. That's-
Sefrani,
Yes.
what is it?
Yes.
No, we ain't never happy.
Jackson.
I'm confused on what we're voting.
Oh, for
You just made all these
Are you
amendments, you gotta
Point of
figure it out.
information.
Me off the task.
Just a point of
Mr.
information.
Stop.
Jackson, Mr.
Stop.
Jackson, listen
Stop.
one more time.
All
Thank you
right.
very much.
That'd be great.
We are voting
Okay,
on
thank you.
resolution number 2014-56 as amended. Two amendments. One is that there'll be no termination of the fund. Two, only $100,250 will be transferred.
Thank you.
Okay.
And your vote is?
Yes.
Browning,
Yes.
Jajanski,
Yes.
Agee,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
passed 7-0. As amended. And we are done.
That's right. And this meeting is adjourned at 8:20.